So this is one of the phones I'm looking at today. I know this is kind of a distant view, but as you can see on the power supply, it's turning on. It goes right to the password prompt, which I don't have the password for it, but fortunately nobody put their pictures on here, so we can actually watch it as it turns on. However, when we plug it in, I'm getting 0 amp draw on the ammeter. The boot up is, I think, kind of unusual because when I hit the button to turn the phone on, it goes straight to like 100 and what was it? I want to say it goes straight to like 300 milliamps. No, it goes to 197. So it goes immediately to 197, and it seems like older generations of phones will go to like 0.07 something, and then they'll go up from there. So I don't know why that is. And, based on the history of iPhones, we can conclude this is probably going to be a Tristar and or Tigris issue. I want to take your virtual bets on that if you want. Do we do both? Do we do one? Or could it possibly be something else? The strange thing about this one is that the story was the customer brought it in for a charging issue. They replaced the charge port, and initially the phone was working okay. And then the customer came back again later, and the phone wasn't charging again. And to me, that sounds like, one, either the diagnosis was not completely accurate, or maybe we just had a Tristar that was failing, and it was kind of going out slowly over time, and it worked a couple times afterwards and then stopped. And I think that's the more likely explanation for this. So I think what we'll do, and again, I was going to ask you guys, in your opinion, if you're doing, and we know that a lot of times on some of these phones, that a failed Tristar will also affect the Tigris and vice versa. So do we do both? Do we do the one that's most likely, or do we just kind of do a little more testing? And I don't think, let's see, why is that? Oh, over it, there we go. Okay, so we want this. Need to back out here a bit. You used BET, another demonized video thing. What? You use BET, another demonized video? What is that? Let's see. John Loya says, maybe Tristar. That's kind of what I'm thinking. That's the most likely explanation, right? 57,007 watching. Yeah, well, here's the thing, Ibrahim. I do not generally schedule these things ahead of time, so there's no promotion. There's nothing to get people here. It's kind of like if I'm in your feed and you've clicked that bell to notify you, then YouTube will tell you that there's a live stream happening like 3 minutes before it starts. So that's kind of on me, but it's very difficult for me to really schedule these always, like 2 days in advance, which is what YouTube recommends. I mean to comment about last week's videos when Mike mentioned one of the videos got demonetized. If anyone watched these live streams and didn't get with the topics, yeah, it's really strange. YouTube decided to demonetize one of my videos, which I'm not really too concerned about the specific video. Why is my microscope looking so low here? I think I might have tilted this thing. See if we can zoom in. Will that change? No, we're going to have to adjust the camera maybe, because the scope looks fine, but the camera doesn't. So let's see if we can get this focused a little better so that you're seeing what I see. All right. Yeah, so YouTube saw, the only explanation I can think of is that YouTube took a look at the promotion that I had during the first 3 minutes of my video, where I said, hey, we're going to have Richard Gage talk about 9/11 conspiracy theory, if you want to call it that. And I am not, what's a good way to put this? I am pro free speech. I think people have the right to talk about whatever they want to, and of course, with YouTube being privately owned, they have the right to say we can promote whichever of your videos we care to. So I can't really say much about that. It's disappointing though that they're going to kind of blanket all conspiracy theories or all skepticisms and questions about things that people generally accept and put them into the category of potentially harmful information, and for that reason not promote that. And I'm not saying, obviously, we shouldn't promote hate speech, and we shouldn't promote crazy things, ideas that would cause violence, or for people to not vaccinate their children so that they cause outbreaks of deadly diseases. That seems like a bad idea. But to just have a conversation about something that is questionable, I think is a bad idea. I think telling people that you're not allowed to discuss, not even question this, it's taboo, you can't talk about it, I think that is a danger to democracy and free speech. But that's just my opinion. Randomly found you streaming. Cool, Harvey. Okay, so let's get to this. Dave Hammerton, what's going on? All right, so I think we're just going to start with the Tristar here. And, you know, we could do some further testing on the board, of course, with the multimeter. I'm going to guess that we've got 5 volts going in and probably not the 3 volts going out. But let's go ahead and just kind of get these things ready to go so I don't bore you anymore with my dialogue or monologue. You're right about that topic. Thank you, guys. I don't think that too many people, you know, outside of maybe advertisers or possibly someone who is trying to cover up some information, who would ever say that anything is off limits for discussion? You know, I would go as far as to say that even if it's something bad, you know, even if it's something negative, why can't we talk about it? I'm not saying promote it, okay? I do not think it's a good idea to promote hate speech. But if you said you are not allowed to discuss the fact that this is happening, you know, the fact that there are people promoting, you know, if I said, look, guys, we need to stop this because it's bad, and they say, well, sorry, that subject is just off limits, that doesn't seem like it's going to benefit, you know, as far as informing people, it's certainly not going to help. So, weird stuff. Weird world we live in. But I got my crappy tweezers. Let's get something else where we can grab this. You can't see, I'm off camera. I can't grab a hold of this stupid sticker. There we go. All right, so we'll peel them back here. And let's set this down with something that'll hold it in place. Right, so we are looking at this right here, which I love. We're still out of focus. Why are we out of focus? Camera's still off a bit. So this Tristar, which isn't too bad, it's only slightly tucked under this rail. On the iPhone 7, it's a little worse. It really goes in under there pretty far. My bigger concern is I came across one of these that actually had some underfill back on this end that you couldn't see. So I was heating this thing and heating it, and it wouldn't budge. And it wasn't a lack of heat. It was the fact that there was underfill stuck underneath there. So I'm going to watch out for that this time. I mean, when you get to the point where the surrounding solder is melting, you don't want to just keep going. If something's not moving, you have to question why. And last time, fortunately, I didn't kill anything in the process because I had quite a bit of heat on there. Over here, of course, we have our Tristar IC, which you know, could be causing some problems. But I'm going to go with Tristar just because we know that this thing is often an issue. And let's get a look. So in the bottom, what is the bottom left-hand corner now? We will note our orientation. So if this thing were sitting upright, it would be the top left. So basically, the chip looks like it's on upright if you're looking at the board vertically. And why can't I get as much light? There we go. I want you guys to be able to see what's happening here. Very difficult to focus with the lag. Today's repair, Johnny, is an iPhone 7 Plus. At least the first one is. There may be a second one, you know, depending on how fast this moves and how long you guys want to stick around. I've also got an iPad mini over here that's got a problem. Tristar failure, thank you. Is that exoskeleton really necessary? That's a good question, Harvey. I don't know. Maybe, because we do know that there is an issue. I think what they were trying to do is make sure they didn't have any more problems with it, like the 6 Plus and the 6 did bending. But is it necessary to actually cover up components on the board? I would say probably not, but whatever. This is Apple. What are you going to do? So let's go ahead and have our new IC ready to go so we can work on the board while it's nice and warm. I just got my new batch in here, so we have plenty of Tristars that are going to... I probably should take it out of the package, but then I may lose it in the process, so we'll wait on that. And I'm going to have to compensate because my heat gun really needs to be recalibrated, or the heating element replaced or something, because I am not getting sufficient heat at crazy levels. So I am actually going to turn this upright. No, I'm not. Sorry, my bad. I'm going to go this way mainly because it's easier to position my tweezers in my right, because I'm right-handed. So in my opinion, it's easier to come in this way and kind of grab this dude and just lift him straight up and hopefully not nudge a bunch of stuff in the process. Sometimes that happens. And we'll get I did get my new OEM bent tip for tinning this stuff. Finally came in. Actually, came pretty quick. I shouldn't say finally. That one came fast. And let's go ahead and get our fan going. I need to get a remote on this fume extractor as well. And I think I'm almost out of flux here. We may have enough to keep going. We still have flux in here. Yeah, still got enough, I think. Doesn't take a whole lot. Alright, so let's start preheating this. Let's get a heat sink on the NAND. Of course, we don't want to disturb this dude. And we'll start just from a distance warming up. And now I'm really getting why people don't give specific numbers when it comes to temperatures. My hot air station has gone from requiring 370 all the way up to requiring about 420 in order to heat these things off. So you certainly want to just use your judgment and not someone else's information unless you know that both machines are identical in performance. I might even have to go a bit higher on this thing. Just a second. So I will increase the heat. I'm going to switch out this heat sink because, of course, it's going to get real warm here real quick. So we'll just put another nickel into the jukebox. And would you sit still? Okay. And we're going to go, I think 420 is sufficient, pretty sure. Alright, so that wasn't too bad. Where'd he go? I lost him. Alright, heatsink off. Flux. Get in there. Bit of leaded solder. Oh, let's not zoom out just yet. Mike, where's my solder? And the fun part of this is getting that part that is under the exoskeleton. I like that term, Harvey. That's actually perfect. The exoskeleton of the iPhone is in my way, which is irritating. Okay, so let's see. Can we get down in here? We can get most of these. Oh, look at that. I just took one off. That was cute. Maybe this is not going to be the best one. So you're going to have to go back there in a minute. In fact, I'll probably put him on right now. I had a bit much solder on that iron, so I might actually just put that back when we put the chip on. So I'll leave it there for the moment. And the fun part here is getting underneath the shield, because you can see we have a few. Let's get this where it's in a safe spot. I don't want to lose him. Yeah, too much solder. You stay over here. Okay, now the fun part, of course, is getting these. And if you tilt it a bit, you can pretty much see there's one row in the back, right there. Let's see. Am I on screen still? Yeah, so there's one row in the back. I know it's probably not the easiest thing to see right now, but those need to be knocked down a bit. I think of it like drywall, pretty much. Just knock them down. Don't do any serious modification. Just want to make them flat. And you can probably get under here with anything that's super small, like tweezers, or if you have, I guess it's the micro pencil they call it. Let's see, this one's hotter. Alright, we'll even those up a bit before we put them back on, but for the most part, that's about all you really need. Let's clean it. And I made a couple of those little Hershey's Kiss looking things. I will smooth those out before we put the new chip on. I do want to make sure we have this back in place, so let's go ahead and tin these two where I pulled this off right there. Let's see. Two things will happen if you live stream, or one of two things. You'll make everything look way easier than it is, or you will make a silly mistake, like picking up a component while you're lifting something off. So I don't know if one's better than the other, but neither are exactly what I was going for. Now you can see we've got a little too much solder on this. I want to say filter, but I'd have to check the schematic. So let's get a bit of that off, and we'll need to have flux on there too, because that's going to make a big mess and bridge to the adjacent component. Guaranteed. Don't want all of that. I just want you to be nice and clean. Come on. Without losing it, of course. That's the idea. That's a lot of solder. Alright, slightly better. Worst case scenario, we can come back and clean it later. I'm going to put a bit of lead on here. And it looks like, is the top one ground? Let me take a look real quick. So, the top is not ground. So that is, the bottom one's ground. That's interesting. Melted really easy. That is a surprise. Alright, so this is going to go, let's do it this way, since it's not directional. Yeah, you know what, I think I might go ahead and float this on now, since all the heat only has to go to the surface. Should be pretty easy. Even easier if you have a pair of tweezers, because you don't need as much heat this way. From the hot air anyhow. You just need it to stay down. That's the trick. So let's see if we can just kind of set this in place. Alright, there. No, don't flip on me. Okay. Close. Alright, that's going to be close enough so that when we heat the chip on, it'll straighten out on its own. If it doesn't, I'll give it some help. And let's get our new IC out of the package. This is where I lose things. Let's see. I know there's a better way, I'm sure. But usually if you just peel back enough to let this out and have a bit of flux on your tweezers, probably not enough there. There we go. Just enough. You can pick it up. And now we need to rotate. Where'd you go? You guys can't see that. I'm sorry. Now I can't see it. There we go. Okay, so remember our dot would be on what's the bottom left here. We are going to need some flux, of course. I'll just go all over the place except where I need you to. Okay. I think I'm going to... Next time I am going to grab a toothpick. Whoever gave me that suggestion is a good idea. Because trying to get this stuff to go where you want it on this scale can be tricky. Alright, so you are going to go right there. And let's see. As far as alignment goes, these aren't too tough because they're pretty big, I mean relatively speaking, but let's see, I guess we go right about there. So what am I looking at that lines up here? We're slightly above the adjacent one. I think we can really just eyeball these though, honestly, because you can kind of get an idea of where it is. And what happens sometimes, I'm going to go ahead and clean that chunk of solder off the rail there, Harvey, because that is going to bother me, and you, I'm sure. So let's get this cleaned up right over here. Let's see, where's my good wick? I've got fake wick, I've got good wick. Here we go. Alright, so let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. There we go. Looks better, right? Oh, you know, I lost my chat here. Let me minimize this. Let's see. Is the edge of the shield taking away the heat? Probably, Johnny. That's a good point. It probably is. You need the Lewis Rossmann gallon of flux. Yeah, I've noticed that. I realized that it's better to have too much flux than not enough, but you can really make a mess if you let it get in the wrong spots, and then it seems like it never comes off. Perhaps the Apple products require such an inordinate amount of heat for repair because by design they are a hell of a process. Maybe. I thought Lewis thought that everyone but Apple never makes mistakes. Yeah. Surface tension will pull the chip under. Correct. On repair culture. Okay. Mike, check the orientation for once. For once? I did, Johnny. I am checking the orientation every time now. So I know that it is in the bottom left. And if you rewind on the stream, you'll see that's what I said. So the tricky thing I will say is doing this during a live stream. It's slightly more awkward than just doing a repair. But we should be okay. Let's get this back up to 420. And then everything should fall right into place. Much easier, actually, because we got leaded solder. Just don't shift on me. And in fact, what's nice is you'll probably see that cap right over here fall into place just before the chip moves, is my prediction. Now, it looks like the chip is actually dropping down a bit, so see that solder starting to melt on the surface. Not quite. We're almost there. I'm still just pretty much manipulating the position of this Tristar. It's not moved on its own yet, so we're waiting. There we go. Do you see that? I think we are good on both. So that should do the trick. I don't know about you guys, but what I've used is kind of my built-in timer on these is I will inspect this under the scope while I'm waiting for the board to cool down because we don't want to throw rubbing alcohol in there right away. So you've got, I think, just enough time to kind of get a close look at this, make sure that it's laying down flat. Everything's lined up, and I do like being able to take this off the edge of the table. It is pretty hot to the touch, I'll say that. And then that way we can kind of look down in here, make sure that thing's lying flat. Everything is in the right position from every angle. And by the time we are, we've determined that we're happy with this installation, it should have cooled down enough, pretty close. You might give it a couple more seconds. There's our old IC there. You might give it a couple more seconds just to be safe. And, if you have to search around for your brush and everything else, then you should have enough time. Otherwise you can set it on a fan or whatever. I used to do that, but I'm not sure it's really necessary. So at this point, we should not have to worry about anything boiling, but it should be warm enough to clean, right? So you see it's not really like bubbling up the way it does when it's too hot. And from here, I'm just going to flood it with alcohol. And I really don't see the need for an alcohol reservoir, bath, or anything like that because everything that drops off of here is going to evaporate quickly. It's going to be a matter of seconds. And if it gets on the floor, I'm not worried. I've got hardwood floors. If it gets on my desk, it's all going to evaporate. So let it, I let it go where it wants to. Not a big deal. And in fact, we can come in with some lower air and just kind of dry everything up, including the desktop. So just like gasoline, don't throw water or anything else on your spill, just let it evaporate. Warm air doesn't hurt. We do get that weird stuff that comes off the NAND, that flaky silver material, whatever that is. I don't know why they coat it with that, but it shouldn't cause any problems. Might hit this one more time with the brush or the or the Q-tip, but for the time being, I'm mainly concerned with testing this, make sure everything's working properly. I am pretty confident that this cap is stuck down, so we should be good there. Dry this up a bit more. And I was happy to find out that rubbing alcohol and flux don't really conduct well. So it's not like if you've got a tiny bit of flux in there, it's going to short something out. I mean, we do want to get it clean as possible. But even with alcohol, you know, it's not generally going to be very conductive. So if you're worried about drying out 100%, you can. But it's probably unnecessary. Okay, we'll give that a second and see what's going on here in the chat. Hey, playlist, what's going on? Haven't seen you here for a while either. For all of the TriStar with obstructions like this, I peel back the shield frame. Okay, with some very fine cut side pliers. And I don't have a problem with that. You know, this thing is obviously going to be, I would hope it's past its warranty period, because otherwise they should have taken it to Apple and had them fix this problem. But if that works for you, yeah, I don't see any detriment to losing part of that side railing. I would have done that too. Okay, cool. Not seeing and verifying my balls makes me anxious. Understandable. Did you use a micrometer to measure each of the solder balls? No, I didn't, Harvey. How stable is your solder stand? What do you mean by my solder stand, Harvey? Are you talking... I'm not sure what that means. If you can elaborate on that question. It's probably me. I'm not that bright. It takes me a while to figure things out. So if you can give me a hint, that would be helpful. All right. I'm not going to worry about cleaning this, you know, thoroughly just yet. We want to make sure it's working. And here's an interesting thing. First thing I noticed is we do have an aftermarket battery on the inside. Shouldn't cause a problem with the TriStar, but it made me wonder, you know, that's why I wanted to test the phone, because what if the battery's a problem? Because as we know, getting good iPhone batteries can be a pain. One thing I'm gonna remove is this, which I don't know about you guys, but this bugs the heck out of me. Oh, I'm not on the camera here. This little antenna thing at the corner, it's easy enough to get the board out with this still inside, but when I go to put it back in, I always struggle, so I'm just going to take this thing out instead of trying to tuck underneath it. It's a little extra work, but whatever. And it's a little awkward to put back in. The holder that holds your soldering gun. Are you talking about the hot air, Harvey? Because if you're talking about what holds up the soldering gun, it is very the hot air station is very solid. These things, you'll knock them over without meaning to, and not get you'll think you have this inside if you're not paying attention, and it will fall out. So these aren't, I like that they sense when you pick them up, but they're not the most secure. If you're talking about the hot air, this thing probably weighs, I don't know, it's stable though. Yeah, I'm happy with this. It doesn't go anywhere. You set this down in there, it would be hard to knock it over, I would think. Of course, the bad news is if you do knock it over, the gun's going to turn on and start blowing hot air. So yeah, there's a little concern there. Probably the worst thing I've ever seen happen with these quick hot air stations is people think that when they're done, with any hot air, I shouldn't say the quick, any hot air station, when you hang it up on the holder, it should continue to blow air until it's cooled down to like 100 degrees Celsius. If you hit the power button and turn it off, you're not allowing it to cool down, and that can cause a lot of problems. Obviously shorten the lifespan of the heating element and also cause it to overheat. If you have a really cheap hot air station and you turn the airflow down low enough and the temperature up high enough, it will literally catch fire. So you definitely want to make sure you have some airflow coming out of these things, especially when they're really hot. That should be a no-brainer, I guess, but until you see it happen, you really probably never think about it. And we've seen that before, which is not good. Yes, I'm actually using a microscope to plug in these cables. I gotta say, this is probably at this point the most challenging part of my life is plugging in, just assembling phones, just putting the screens back on. That's probably way more difficult than the micro soldering as far as I'm concerned. All right, so let's get our ammeter hooked up on this end so that we can quickly determine, I mean, we should see a charging icon, right? But I want to see how much, and you guys probably, okay, one of these days I will hook this up so you can see everything. Mainly though, if we get a charging icon here, we should be in good shape. And I am getting 0.3. Oh, it just jumped up to 1.34, and you probably can't see it with this light on, Mike. Thanks a lot. Gosh, this is probably not even... Can you guys see that? Let's see. Maybe we can do it under the scope. Let's see. Whoops. We want this one. Okay, so let's see. Is it possible for you guys to even see the stupid charging icon? It's such a low light. Yeah, that's not really helping, is it? Oh, all right. Give it a minute. You'll have to take my word for the moment. I'm getting 1.33 amps on the ammeter, so it is charging the phone. Right now the battery's dead, obviously. I wish there was a way I could show this to you, but this camera just doesn't really pick it up. You can't see that, can you? I swear to you, there's a battery icon on there. This is really frustrating. Maybe we can do it in front of this camera. Does it show up here? Can we see that? Glare everywhere. You see the battery icon? There it is. Okay, so it is charging. I'm going to disconnect the ammeter because I've been told it is not healthy to charge these things long term through those. So you want to plug it directly into the charging block or whatever it is. And we'll give this a couple minutes to turn on, but I think we're good on this one. No backlight. I don't think it's no backlight, Johnny, but if it is, we'll find out very soon. Let's see. Plugging in the Lego connector can be my nemesis. Yeah, Dave, these things, it's like, especially when they don't center them anymore. You know, it used to be the teeth, the actual part that connects was perfectly centered on the cable and you could see where it went, although sometimes you had to peel off the little sticker behind it because those were crooked. Now you've got some where the connector is all the way at the edge or it's over to one side, and yeah, it's definitely not a guessing game, but you have to be able to see what you're doing. What if it was just a bad charging port? Well, Harvey, I hope that it wasn't, but they've already changed out the charging port. I didn't change it out myself, so I'm fairly confident that it was not the charge port. Oh, and you know what? I'm sorry, guys. I completely skipped a step during this, and I'll show you in just a moment after the phone turns on. Probably my best way for testing the Tristar outside of using, outside of people telling you what happened, outside of using this little board here that you can plug in, and outside of investing like $100 and some to have something that plugs in, and we'll test the Tristar, which my understanding is those work most of the time. But if you just go inside the phone and you put your disconnect the battery and plug your multimeter in, you can test to see how much voltage is getting to the battery terminal, and that I think is a better way to test the system overall, just in my experience. Of course, the only catch is you have to open up the phone. So when it comes to anything iPhone 7 and forward, you really don't want to open up the phone unless you have to. It's just extra time and energy and liability. The LCD is working, but no backlight. Yeah, I don't think that's it, Johnny. We'll find out in a minute. I think that it's just trying to pick this up on camera is very difficult. So I can immediately test a freshly worked on board. I put it against the fume extractor nozzle for 10 seconds. Boom, nice and cool. Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny is I've been doing that occasionally. What I generally was doing in the past is I had that little smoke absorber. If you've seen it, it's basically a fan that pulls smoke in but doesn't do much as far as solder fumes go. So I was setting my boards right on top of that, but I've actually moved that since then. But yeah, that definitely works. Connectors even. Yeah, connectors are... Okay, so that's going to take a second to charge up. So I'm actually... Why are we all out of focus here now? This camera, I swear. It's pretty bad. Maybe if I turn this on, that will change things. Does that refocus? Come on. There we go. Weird. Okay, so now if we turn this down, we should stay in focus. So let's put this, I don't know. Yeah, you know, Johnny, it's definitely got a backlight. If it didn't, you wouldn't be able to see this. But if you take a look here, although it's not easy to see, you can see the battery icon there on the screen without shining a light inside here. So this is good to go. I'm just going to set it over here for the moment until the battery turns on. It's going to be completely dead. And yeah, we're 45 minutes in. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I don't mind continuing to stream. I think maybe some other people might jump on here. And for those of you who are used to an hour and you got things to do, I totally understand. You can always watch the replay, but I got another one here. And it may end up being a bit time consuming, but it has to get done today regardless. So there's no reason for me not to fix it. But listen to this and tell me what you think. So I've got an iPad mini that came in requesting a charge port replacement. In fact, they even sent me a charge port. So that was pretty cool, right? Here's the catch though. If you look at the notes on this, and I've done some testing myself to confirm it, what it says is, one, the home button is loose. So where do we go? Oh, and by the way, here we go, guys. We are all set. Okay, so our iPhone 7 is good. I am going to pull the board out and just kind of clean it up a little bit more. No reason to do that right now. We'll make sure the battery percentage keeps going up and doesn't get stuck on like 2% or whatever it is right now. But I am going to power the phone down so it can charge a little faster. And once we get it cleaned up and put back together, that's a done deal. Now on this iPad mini 2, home button is loose, which I have also confirmed. So if you take a look at this home button, it's actually syncing, which tells me that someone probably repaired this, replaced the screen already. Let's see, where are you? Wow, that's bright. Okay, so somebody replaced this screen already, but this home button is just sinking down in there, and that probably means they forgot to put the ring behind it that holds it in place. So that's not a problem. We can fix this while we're in there. On the description for this one, it says plugging in to a charger, presumably, results in no charge, but will wake the iPad up from being dead only to let it die again. And I was a little foggy on what that meant exactly until I tested it for myself. And what I found is that, long story short, it will charge while the device is turned off. But when it powers up, it doesn't charge anymore. So obviously, what do you guys think? It doesn't really sound like a charge port, right? So we're going to open this up and take a look. And I think the good news is that not having to do a charge port on an iPad mini is a relief to me, because they're just a headache to pull the board out. And with the Tristar on this one, I think that we can do it inside the frame. I don't think there's any necessity to pull the board on this one. The only bummer about this is I really hate taking these apart because they take forever. So if you don't want to be bored, I don't blame you for not watching, because this is going to be a process, and I really need to get my little blue heating mat to make this easier. Can we go there? Okay, so let's see if we can reset this camera one more time so it'll focus. Come on. There we go. So these are fun because they have a billion screws, and it's super easy to crack the screen, but because this button is sinking in, I'm kind of thinking it's probably been taken apart before, so generally they come across a lot easier. So I'm going to get my rubbing alcohol and my playing cards ready to go, because for me, that is the trick to opening these up without breaking the digitizer. Now, did I just jinx myself? Maybe. We'll find out. Fortunately, I have extra screens around here. I'm also going to get my safety glasses, so give me just a second. Because while I'm pretty decent at this, in the very rare circumstance that something cracks, the glass is always going to go flying directly at your eyes, so I don't need that, obviously. And what I do need is my heat gun. Were you talking about... I'll come back to that, I guess. Okay, so we're going to get this nice and warm. And yes, I should have a heating mat, but I don't. One of these days. Does Tristar get bust because of counterfeit chargers? Yes. Yes, Johnny, it does. It gets damaged because of... Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear me. It gets damaged because of non-OEM or non-MFI is what they call it. Not OEM, that's not correct. Non-MFI chargers do not have a component built into them that sufficiently negotiates the charging voltage with the phone. So the Tristar is sort of a safety mechanism to prevent the phone from being damaged by a non-certified charger, if that makes sense. And the interesting thing is, nobody tells you that when you buy your phone. Obviously, that's not going to encourage sales if you say, hey, if you use the wrong charger on this, it won't work anymore. Who's going to want to buy that product, right? And on top of that, no matter, even if you have told somebody, how long is it going to be before they forget, don't have their charger, and say, whatever, I'll just plug it into someone else's charger, or this gas station charger, or somebody bought me a charger for a gift, and now I have to use it. So, that's not going to go very far, obviously, for most people. You will have some diehard... Oh, this one This one's pretty sticky. You know, I assumed this was an aftermarket screen, but boy, that sucker is on there. All right, so we're going to start in the middle here because there's a lot less adhesive down on these rails right over here. And plenty of alcohol will make our life slightly easier. I shouldn't say easy, but easier. And if you want to save your progress on these, you can just kind of use as many of these cards as you like. Usually once you pull them up there, it shouldn't give you too much of a problem. So yeah, sorry, but this is the boring part, of course. There's not much I can do about that. Let's see. Oh, okay. Cool, Harvey. Well, I'm glad. If anybody benefits from this, especially a subscriber, they are not too tough. They're just a little time consuming, and there are faster ways to do this. If you buy a heating mat, which I've got at the shop, I don't have one here at home, but I'm about to invest in one. It will make this a little easier, but the heat and the rubbing alcohol are going to be your best friend. So just go through here, get your card soaked in rubbing alcohol, and once it feels like you're hitting some resistance, you either need to warm it up again or add a little more rubbing alcohol to your playing card, and it slices through a bit easier. I don't like using metal tools for this. Some people do, Personally, I think that's a good way to scratch up the lens or to break something. I think metal on glass is generally not a good idea, but whatever works for you. So just kind of work through here a bit. We're going to need a little more heat, I think, on this side, but this may actually be an aftermarket screen with some really good adhesive on it. It's coming off slightly easier than the OEM screen would. Just remember that when you actually start lifting this, you want to make sure that everything is getting separated. Because if I've got all this clear up here and it's still sticky at the bottom, you're going to be putting stress on the piece that's adhesive in there. I don't like that card. These cards are these are the best cards ever, as far as I'm concerned. Even the plastic ones they send you as tools don't really slide through the way these do. Okay, so we're coming along. Just don't go over the edge. If you get anything on the LCD for these, which I need to grab my gloves momentarily. I always wear rubber gloves when I'm taking these screens off or putting them on, because when you get fingerprints on the LCD, especially on the Retina version, which is the iPad Mini 2, they are almost impossible to clean off. Like, you'll get it somewhat clean, but you're always going to have smear marks. And, while it's not noticeable if the device is turned off or turned on, when the screen is off, the customer will see it and say, oh man, there's fingerprints all over the place. And you say, well, but you can't see it when you're using it. And they go, yeah, but it wasn't like that when I gave it to you. So, yeah, that's always an issue. All right, so we're going to start heating the bottom and just break through a little more of this adhesive down here. Hey, Caesar, what's going on? Always doing it, meet you. Love these videos. Cool. Hey, man, if you're getting something out of this, that is even better. Okay, so nice and warm, not too warm. I think warm to the touch, but not hot enough to burn your hand is a good way to phrase it. If you're wondering about the temperature, I don't know the exact number. You really shouldn't have to worry about the exact temperature that you're getting these up to. Just to the point where your card slides through, somewhat easily. And of course, we have some cables down here that we have to watch out for. So you don't want to go too deep as you're prying along here for that reason, and out of concern for the LCD. On this side, we're pretty clear. There's not much over here that can hurt us. And I am going to grab my gloves and my phone here, because it keeps going off. So I don't know who's trying to reach me, but it must be important. All right, so we're going to go into right about there, and I'm going to get some rubber gloves because this is going to get fingerprints all over the place momentarily. And who is texting me? I don't know what that's about. Anyhow. Okay, so just a tiny bit more heat, and you'll see that at this point, we've worked through most of the adhesive. I'm gonna go down this side one more time, and then if we make sure that this is warm, we can just slowly lift the screen and it should come off. In fact, I could probably do that right now. But with these, better safe than sorry, I think. I mean, it's not a big deal to replace this, and we're gonna have to redo the adhesive regardless, which is a bummer. I really don't enjoy doing the adhesive. Okay, I'm gonna try to do this so you guys can see, which is, again, gonna be a bit awkward. But if we just lift here gently, we should be able to get this thing to start lifting up. Make sure this is nice and warm down here. Yeah, we're gonna have to work through that bottom corner, I think, a bit, but this should start coming off. And if you've got any strings, I call them, attached, you might want to just cut through those. I'll show you what I mean here. So I've got pieces of adhesive here, here, and on this side that are kind of holding the screen together. Don't cut through your digitizer cable, of course, which is down at the bottom. And I've got, look at this, there's a, if you can see it, there's a big string holding the top together. So as I try to pry this apart, it's not going anywhere until we cut through that. So that way we can relieve that adhesive part. Come on. Now I'm all tangled up here. Like I said, it's a little awkward doing this in front of a camera. Lift this up. So if you just put, you see that? The heat does the magic, and this all just starts to open up. And now you don't want to get dust or fingerprints or breathe on it or anything, because this will just pick up everything like a magnet. In fact, I've already got one little tiny piece of foam from there and one little speck there, but you can see the home button just fell out here pretty much. So this has got to be a replacement screen, although it doesn't. Yeah, we'll find out here in a second. Don't want to go too high there. There actually is a small cable right at the upper part of the, well, the lower part of the digitizer there. I hope I didn't do any damage to that. All right, so we don't need the heat gun. Don't need these silly glasses. And now I just need something to kind of hold this, or you can lift it off if you're very careful. If you can get through the adhesive and lift this up high enough to where it's not stuck anymore. Let's, well, that's interesting the way that came off. Once your adhesive is not sticking, you can actually just open this thing up and lay it down, and there won't be any tension on that digitizer cable. And we'll just go ahead and start with these. This is going to be the time-consuming process, is redoing the adhesive on this. Now, if you can't see this, unfortunately, but there is a missing screw up here at the top corner of the display. So I know for sure this has been taken apart. Well, almost definitely been taken apart, because they forgot to put one of the screws in. And, oh, it's actually stuck to the adhesive. So there was a screw. I don't know how I can get this to where you can see. There was a screw stuck to the adhesive here, so that's kind of interesting. That could have been a number of things. It could have worked out. Nah, I'm going to say somebody probably took this apart already. Almost definitely. So we're going to have one up here that's a little difficult to see because of this foam. I don't need these cards either anymore. I need a bigger desk. Let's see, where are my good tweezers? Where are my big fat tweezers? Here we go. So there's going to be a bit of foam right up here in the corner. Just going to peel that back instead of stabbing through it with the screwdriver like many people do. And we'll go ahead and take this one out. Boy, this screw is not tightened down, so that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what's going on with this tablet. Now somebody's calling me. All right. I don't know what that is. All right, come out of there, would you? Got a stubborn screw. Okay, so that one's out. Then we're going to have two more at the bottom, and they are going to be concealed. This one by another foam pad, and then on the opposite side, we have adhesive, it looks like, covering our other screw hole. So we need to make sure that we can expose this and not have the adhesive going over the edge of the screen either. And if you aren't, anyone who's not replacing the adhesive on these iPad minis after repairing them, there's a really good possibility that your screen's going to start lifting up over time. So even though sometimes you can get things off really clean, I recommend that you put new adhesive on there, because you don't want to have to do this twice. Now, this will be the real answer as to whether this has been disassembled before, because out of the box, we are going to have adhesive that runs along the edges of the LCD behind it. So on either side, there's a big strip of adhesive, and if you just tried to lift the LCD out, it will not cooperate. You've got to go in there and loosen that first. Now, if this comes right open, then we can assume that that adhesive is gone. But you see, as I'm kind of lifting here, it does not want to move. So this is another good job for the playing card. You can apply some heat if you want, but basically if you get underneath here with a tiny bit of alcohol, try not to get the alcohol on the screen. And you can usually go in and just work your way along the side here. And my adhesive is in the way, unfortunately. So we need to move this off of here. This is one way to do it. And I'm not saying it's the only way. There are a lot of solutions to getting behind here. And these LCDs have a very small amount of flexibility. So if you're careful, you should be able to go right behind it on either side and just kind of work through that adhesive. Don't put too much stress on it, but if you went down like this, chances are you're not going to crack it. I know it seems like you would, but they do have just enough flexibility for you to get behind them and get through that adhesive. So I really don't know what the story is on this. It's acting like an OEM everything, like it's never been opened, but I kind of suspect that it has. Don't know for sure. Now, the other thing that most people will skip is you've got a couple strips of adhesive here. Let's see, probably should do this under the scope because this isn't going to help. What's going on here? Let's see if this is even going to work. It might be a little too close up. Okay, so can we back out? That's as far as I can back up. So on either side of the display, you're going to have some conductive tape right here, and that is attached to the LCD. So you want to go through and pull this back because we are going to put it in the same place when we put it back together. So you just kind of have to work along here and separate this on either side. Come on. And guys, if you ever need a tutorial for this, I have one that's edited so you don't have to sit through an hour-long live stream to see it, and it's pretty detailed. On this side, we have also this little thing. It's kind of a pad with some tape attached to it. We need to get that peeled out of the way, and then we're going to have one more over here. Oh, you know what? They're missing this. Okay, so you see this piece right here? There should have been one of these on the other side. So this has been taken apart before, and they only missed one thing, and it was replacing this little piece that goes on top of that adhesive strip. So now I am confident this has been worked on previously, and I think that the sunken home button would be the first indication that someone's messed with this before and forgot to put all of the parts back inside of it, which we see quite often. All right, there we go. Because a lot of companies' mentality is just do it as fast as you can and get them out. And obviously that leads to things not being done properly every time. Okay, so you see now that we've got that tape out of the way, we can actually lift the LCD out a bit, but we need to flip it over. Let's see, which way is close? Okay, so we need to flip this open. The catch here is if you lay it right on top of the display, you're going to get adhesive from the bottom of the screen over here on the LCD, and that is something you don't want. So I'm going to take just a couple post-it notes here. I don't know what this is. It's one of my passwords. Okay, I'm going to get a post-it note, and I'm going to stick it right here at the bottom of the digitizer so that this way when we flip the LCD over, it's not laying directly on a strip of adhesive, and it will keep dust from landing on here while we're working on the rest of the tablet. Now the thing about this is you've got, see, we don't need that. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more screws on the inside that need to come out. I want to say these are all the same size. I'll see in just a second, but still I would encourage you to keep them in order. That's just a good habit to have. If you haven't done this before, I know a lot of you guys are going, hey Mike, we already know this stuff. This is hopefully for the benefit of anyone who doesn't. And what works against you here is the magnets that are installed for that little cover that tells the tablet when you closed it. The screws will love to stick to those every time. So tweezers will help you. This metal plate on the first generation iPad mini, I swear it had like 12 screws in it. It was insane. I'm glad that they cut back on that a bit because it's just labor intensive. And if you ever forget to put this metal plate back in and you have to take all those screws out again, it's really going to slow you down. Okay, so only 7 in this one. Now the trick to this metal plate, in my opinion, because it's latched in from the side, so you can't just lift it out. It won't come out on its own. What I typically do is hold the sides down, come into the center so that you can sort of arc this thing upward. And when you do, that's going to relieve the pressure, it's going to bring them in a bit on the side so that way they clear and they come right out. And hopefully that makes things easier for someone. From here, of course, ooh, look at this. This is an interesting one. So we have a tag here on top of the NAND. Is it the NAND? It's not the NAND. Is it? There's a tag right on top of this IC. I think it's the NAND. I need to double check. So I think this might be a refurbished device, and I wonder who refurbished it. 3 screws here on the cover plate. No, that's the Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, I said NAND. It looks like a NAND. It's actually the Wi-Fi IC. Why did I say NAND? Okay, so 3 screws here, and I want to show you guys something that anyone who hasn't worked on a lot of these, you need to know this if you plan on repairing iPad minis. So right here, we have this little, let's see, can we come out a bit? Oh, you guys can't. I need someone to run my cameras for me. Okay, so right here, we are looking at a cover plate for the battery and the digitizer, or I'm sorry, battery, LCD, and digitizer. Now, when you lift this off, there's something important to know about disconnecting these cables. I just lost the tweezers that I wanted. Okay. So just go ahead and lift this up. One, you probably already know that if you don't want to kill the backlight on this thing, the first thing you should do is disconnect the battery. So that's going to be this cable right over here. Go ahead and lift this up, and now we have no power going into the device. We don't have to worry about killing the backlight, but what we do have to worry about this LCD connector here, this one's pretty straightforward. Just get underneath here, lift it up, and unplug it. When you get to the digitizer, though, these things are notorious for falling apart when you unplug them. So you could go in here, do everything right, get as much under here as you can, and lift this thing up, and the little gold teeth underneath it will just fly out into the room all over you. And you'll wonder what you did wrong. And it's not you. It's just a poor design. It's a very weak design that they made for the digitizer. Now, if you take a look at the LCD connector, and if you've seen me say this before, sorry for the repeat, but I think this is important to know. If you take a look at this LCD connector, you can see that the pins are reinforced on the outside and on the center by this solid bar right here. If you look at the digitizer, and by the way, I recommend that you disconnect it from the edge, okay? So instead of getting as much under here as you can, you actually want to come in from the side and lift it up this way when you unplug it. This has a higher success rate. It is not 100%. It will still, sometimes these disintegrate for no apparent reason. But if you do it from the side, you'll minimize the odds of that happening. And if you take a look at this connector, you can immediately see that they really designed this in a way that it is going to self-destruct because you don't have the same type. You see on this side, I've got hair all over the place here. On this side, these pins are covered, okay? So you can see where they go in, but they're also behind this plastic bar. Over here, you can actually see the top of the pins all the way around every single one of them. So there's very little of anything holding these things in place, and they're ready to just pop out at any moment. So if you want to save yourself some time and energy, make sure you're very careful with that digitizer connector. They are just, it's a silly design if you ask me. Now this has got some adhesive under it, so we need to come under here. My goal right now is to just get this whole digitizer and LCD assembly out of the tablet, out of the way, so we don't get dust in it, worry about, hurting any cables or anything like that. And also pay close attention to the way that this LCD cable tucks down inside of here. You can't see that, can you? I'll show you in a minute where the fold is. Because if you don't tuck that back down inside, it will put pressure on the digitizer, and I'd say this is probably the number 2 reason that people see their screens lifting over time. Number 1 being bad adhesive, or not putting new adhesive in, and number 2 is not folding this cable down correctly. This can go either side, it doesn't matter. So the LCD cable is going to go down underneath the edge. So there's a cavity down underneath here, and you want to make sure that cable is going down inside and not stacking up on the outside here, because if it folds over itself and it's sitting up here, obviously it's pushing on the glass, and there's not a whole lot holding this glass in. It's seriously just adhesive. No screws, nothing else, just adhesive holding it down. So you need all the help you can get. And what is going on with this thing? Oh, we'll get to that later. I don't want to make this about the digitizer. Let's get to the real problem, and that is the Tristar, which, by the way, I probably could have plugged this in just to see what this is telling me real quick. So I'm going to do that. Let's see. Hopefully there isn't any long screw damage. Yeah, that would not be fun. I think maybe the screw was too short to grab the housing. Let's see. There was a little grasshopper doing the job previously. I hope I never need my iPad serviced. Yeah, they're not fun, Harvey. I'd say it's one of the least... it's just a weird, overcomplicated design, if you ask me. Anyways, I'm going to check this Tristar, these Tristar measurements real quickly. Obviously, we're already inside here. We need to fix the button. And it's got telltale symptoms of a Tristar issue. But if we take a look here, I will share these numbers. So we got on number 1, we've got 485. Number 2 is 716. 3 is 715. 4 is OL. That's all normal. 5 is 481. 6 is 717. And 7 is 717. So this would not have helped us if we were trying to diagnose this tablet. This is not giving me any indication that there's a problem with the Tristar IC, although we can pretty much assume that that is the issue, just because this thing charges when it's off and not when it's on. That would be my assumption here. So we're going to need to go under the shield. Sounds like some kind of spy movie. Watch out for this little dude right here. Look at that. There's a, what is that? Is that a cap? I think that is a capacitor right there. Maybe a resistor sitting right on the board. Or a filter. I don't know. Let's get this shield off. And if we look over, guess what? It's right in full view. See, on some of these, on the iPad Pro, let's see, get a little more light here. Oops, other way, Mike. Where are you? There we go. Look at this, 1610A1. So if they refurbish this thing, well, I guess they weren't addressing that issue, so never mind. But on the iPad Pro, the Tristar is completely obscured by this little metal thing here. So in that case, you really don't have a lot of choices but to remove the shield or part of it to access that. On this one, however, I don't love the idea of doing this with the battery sitting right here. We could probably get away with it, but I think I'm going to go ahead and tear this down the rest of the way because I don't want to have to take the battery out. That would be my other option. Let's see. Let's see if this battery is really glued in well. Yeah. This looks like an original battery, I suppose. Yeah, it might be a close call as to what's easier, pulling the battery or pulling the board. In fact, the battery might be the better option because we don't have to disturb any of the charge ports, the charge port, the speaker wiring, anything else like that. I really don't love doing these batteries. They're such a headache. What do you guys think? What would be the fastest? Because the adhesive on this battery is pretty serious. Let's see if it's going to cooperate or not. 11 p.m. Need to go to bed. Early start. No problem, Dave. I totally understand. Have a first-gen digitizer. Okay, cool. Yeah, no worries, Dave. I appreciate you stopping by, and check out the replay when you get a chance. And if you, like I said, if you go to my channel, there's a much faster version of the digitizer replacement on here. So help yourself to that. Let's see. Really wonder how those factory workers manage to do these tedious maneuvers as fast as possible while in a chain of assembly. I don't know, probably with some supervisor breathing down their back and threatening them with physical violence if they don't go faster. That's just my guess. I don't know. It'd be cool to have like a hidden camera inside of a iPhone factory, wouldn't it? iPad factory. God. It is really a toss-up. Taking this battery out. Taking these batteries out is not easy. There's adhesive all over the place. And of course, damaging batteries is not a good idea. And I think I need a playing card that's just like about the length of this entire battery to get underneath here. Let's see, can we do it? Can we do this? I hate to shove like spudgers or anything underneath here for obvious reasons. Don't want to poke a hole in this thing. And I think I'm actually making this a longer process by even bothering with the battery. We'll see. Because we know that the charge port works, right? Because it does charge when the device is off. Yeah, I really don't think I want to do this. As I'm halfway through. I do need some air though. You know, look at this, guys. There is nothing. This thing is also missing the headset jack screw, which I may be able to see that. Might not be able to see it. There's no screw here for the headset jack. It's completely gone, so that's kind of interesting. Not sure what kind of repair this thing had previously, but they did not put all of the pieces back in for some reason. Probably didn't feel they were necessary, I guess. Or maybe that's the answer to your question, Johnny. This is how they do it so fast. They just do an incomplete job for the most part. I know I could be heating this thing from the back, but I think we might be able to get in this way. Maybe. Let's get a little more rubbing alcohol. Actually, these cards might work at this point. Until they start to fall apart. Let's see, are we almost all the way through here? Almost. I don't want to put pressure down there where all the circuitry is. Nor on this cable. Alright, so we're almost through. There's a strip along the edge here. I know I'm probably being a little too cautious, but I would hate to explode a battery under any circumstances, especially on camera. I guess if you're going to do it on camera is the way, huh? Oh, that's weird. Right, there will be some editing on this video. All right, so I think almost got the battery out after what, 10-15 minutes? All right, come on. Where are you still stuck? We're just about there. All right, you are ready to come out. As you can tell, I am very cautious with batteries for reasons, but you see they put strips, again we're out of focus. They put strips here, 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 here. I mean, it's all over the place, but I did get the battery out without really bending it, just a tiny, tiny bit, and that's the important thing. You know, we don't want to cause any damage to those cells internally. And now if we use a hot air here, we don't have to worry about blowing up a battery and not have to take the it out of the box. So let's go over here. Magnets can interfere with sensors. Hey, what's up, Michael Spencer? All right, so we're going to go back. Ooh, did I bend this railing a bit? That's not cool. Yeah, I did bend the railing a tiny bit here, but it did not smash anything. That's interesting. All right, so let's go. Look what was on the back one of my cards. Another Tristar. I gotta throw all my old ICs away for sure. All right, so let's get down to business here. Oh, we can't see that again. Nope, we don't want that. We want, where's my microscope? Oh, we want this. There we go. The only sensor to get effective with magnets are the compass or magnetometer. All right. Yeah, I think we're good. I did bend this rail a bit, which surprised me because all I had was a playing card there, and that put enough pressure on this to move it a little bit. So yeah, does it really help the structure much? I doubt it. Okay, so let's get rid of these gloves. Hands are getting hot. And I don't think, excuse me for 1 second, folks. I don't think this will take nearly as much heat as an iPhone 7, but I could be wrong. Actually, these tablets do take a bit of heat, so let's see how it responds. Okay, the dot is at the top left, and if I zoom in, everything goes dark. I don't know why that is. It's quite annoying, though. So, flux. And I'm going to guess here, we can probably go to about 400. 400 from me. I can't speak for anyone else, unfortunately. Some air. Soldering iron. Try not to get solder all over the place this time. And let's warm it up. I got the wrong tweezers, but I think we'll be okay. All right, well, that's not happening, so let's go back up to 420. Might even need a little extra on this. Yeah, we're not even melting the surrounding solder. Alright, I'm going to crank it up a bit more. Maybe add a tiny bit of flux, even though I'm fairly convinced this doesn't matter at this stage. Let's see if we can get this off. That is not budging. Crazy. You know, once I get this hot air working properly, I'm going to be all messed up because I'm going to be thinking of my older temperatures, which are going to be way too hot. I'm showing 440 right now. And I'm not even sure that's going to be enough. Maybe it would be wiser to take the board out. I wonder if the frame isn't causing a problem here by sucking up the heat. There we go. All right. Finally cooperated. Flux. And let's even these out a bit. Keep losing my solder. Oh, my iron's not even hot enough. What is going on today? Oh, am I not? Oh, yeah, I am. Okay. Alright, so getting in here will be tricky. You see that? Just not enough heat or not enough flux is going to cause this issue. So, sometimes you got to have your, see how they're stuck together there? Sometimes, if you got some stubborn ground pads, and you don't want to go crazy heating the board, get a little hot air on this at the same time. We should be able to clean that up as soon as my thing cools down here. So I can preset it. So I'm going to go back down to 350, my temp, and then that way we can just warm this up and kind of clear these pads a little better, get that excess solder off. You see how much easier it melts now? Now stick to my iron. And we don't want to spend too much time on these, obviously. And really, if they're sticking up like that, it'll even out when we get the chip on there. So I'm not too worried about these looking perfect. As long as they've got relatively the same amount of solder, and you get everything centered fine. I haven't found this to be an issue. Just make sure they're all evened up a bit. And you can see there's a couple bigger than the others here. Might have to knock those down here actually. Alright, let's try this again. I think I'm going to use a different tip though. This is not doing what I want it to, so. Do I have the right one ready to go? No, I don't. When do you decide it's time to use the solder stencil? Only if I'm reballing a chip, Harvey. That's the only time I'm using, if that's what you're talking about, that's the only time I'm using the stencils is to reball, and I'll use them all the time, pretty much. I would say anything over 4 balls, probably even that. You know, if I'm doing like if I'm doing one of those little, what do you call it? One of those little gate, like Q4, Q2300. I'll use a stencil then. I mean, if you got it, why not, right? All right, let's see if we can just even these up a bit, because there were a couple that were taller than the others. Specifically, this dude here. There we go. And this one is a little shy, right there. Come on. All right, I think we are close enough on these. Clean it one more and get some fresh flux, and then we're good to go. Install. Wick the wicked balls. Yeah. You know, I don't, Johnny. I know some people wick these. I don't generally. I mean, I'm sure you could. I always feel like my worst nightmare is having one of those pads get pulled off, because I don't want to have to fix that if I can avoid it. Run jumpers and who knows what else. So I don't generally do that. But hey, if it works. Alright, so let's see if we can make this a little easier. I should have put my flux down. Okay, so flux. Just a bit right here. Come on. And we said top left corner, right? Guys, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't want to get this in the wrong spot. Alright, so tiny bit of flux. Just touch this dude, and look at that. He sticks like a magnet. And then flip him over upside down. Way to go. So this 1610A1 is the very first generation of Tristars. Or actually, there may be one before it. I think there was something that was numbered a little differently. I'll have to double check. But anyways, this guy's getting upgraded to the latest, greatest Tristar there is on his iPad Mini 2. So this should probably outlast the device, unless he does continue to plug it into non-MFI chargers. And I would venture to say that in some cases even if you're only using all Apple chargers, you're still probably going to run into this problem. I mean, nobody's perfect, and these Tristars are particularly sensitive, so I don't think following Apple's advice is always going to make you completely safe. I mean, we kind of learned that that's not always in their best interest anyways, so having customers not have to replace things is not good for business. Can you guys see that? This thing gets so dark when I zoom out, but yet it's harder for me to see what I'm doing. All right. I hope you can see that. Whoa, almost slipped on it. Yeah, it takes a while to heat up these boards, I think, because they're so big. Come on. Still not on. Are you on yet? I can't tell. Yeah, I think he's on. Alright. It looks a little crooked though, doesn't it? Is that just me? It looks crooked, but it appeared to bounce back. So I think we are good. It's probably just the way I'm looking at this thing, I'd imagine. Should be okay there. Now, if you have this out of it, I guess the good news, or if you were to take this out of the board completely, or out of the housing, you'd be able to get a better view of the bottom of this Tristar, which is a little tough to see. This probably isn't going to look clear to everyone, but you can actually see the corner ball here from this. It's not helping you, is it? You can just see through this little opening. It's actually not that first set. Those are adjacent resistors. You can actually see down in there. I'm sorry, this is going to be hard for me to show you. Maybe we can get it from over here. Okay, so if we take a look here, where are you? Can we see it from here? There you go. Can you see those? You can't because it's too dark. It's quite annoying. Okay, if you look there, you can actually see the balls from the side of the chip. Those are not the big ones there. It's if you go down further in here, and I can't zoom without this thing going dark. So you guys just have to take my word for it. I can actually see that the balls are attached, and we should be ready to roll here. I try not to get so much flux that it goes under the board, but the good news is there's not a whole lot on the opposite side in this area that you have to worry about. But still, that's one of the reasons I hate to go crazy with the flux, is just trying to clean it up from here. You know, if you're not planning to pull the board out, it's just extra work to have to go under there. I swear that chip looks sideways to me. It doesn't look 100% straight, but it is sitting down flush, and it did bounce back when I pushed on it. So let's see if this is going to work or not. So basically, we just need the battery and the ammeter, and we'll be able to tell if this thing is charging, but we need to know if it's charging when it's turned on, so that's not true. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get this stuff. Boy, this is going to be fun. So we do need our battery. And let's see, let's do this. We're almost done, folks. We are almost there. So we're just going to set the battery in. I'm not going to stick it down. Really, all we need is the LCD so that we'll know that the device is charging when it's turned on. But instead of separating these two, I'm just going to not plug in the digitizer. No, actually, you know what? I am just going to connect the LCD because this is going to be very difficult for me to show you guys. And I still need to flip this thing around the opposite direction here when it does start charging. So plug in the LCD before the battery, always, or you will have regrets, I promise you. Quite often, you're going to kill the backlight. So from here, we need our charger. And not that it means anything at this point, but it is turning the device on. Let's flip it around, Mike, so they can see. Okay, when I plugged it in, I did get the Apple, as you can see, but I don't know what's on this screen. So give me a second. Let me make sure there's nothing that anyone would have privacy concerns about while this thing boots up. Did a 7 Plus yesterday. Hey, Nate, what's going on? That died after a fan was pulled out. What? Was the phone? Oh, after a USB fan? Is that what you're talking about? Nate, I wanted to ask you, what did you get anywhere with that iPhone 4S that we were talking about yesterday? I'm curious. All right, I am on the Apple logo. It seems like for quite a while. There we go. So the Apple logo just shut off. So I had an Apple logo, and now I have nothing. And what does this thing show me? What is going on here? What if we have a bad Tristar and a bad charge port? Okay, so we can't see the screen. That's interesting. And it's not charging. So it did turn the device on. Maybe we do have a charge port issue as well. That would be an interesting one. Oh boy, what is going on here? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I planned on the prior repair. Get this LCD off. So let's take a look and see what's coming into the battery terminal, which is what I did on the iPhone 7 Plus, by the way. So if we go here, let's see, can we get this up high enough? Okay, so battery, I think the positive is on the right. I may be wrong about that, but I'm going to check this for voltage and see what's even going in here. Not that that's going to, let's see, ground here. I've got nothing there. I've got 1.1 volts here, and I've got 0.89 volts here. This has got to be ground, right? Let's see. Is this negative? Yeah. So the ground is on the left-hand side. You can see there's a little arrow there too. But we should be getting more than, now I'm getting negative voltage on this side. 0.8 and 0. So I'm getting 0.8 volts here. I wonder if there was something completely different than, you see this? This is what concerns me. This is almost definitely refurbished. And who knows who worked on it. You can see there's actually flux down here. I wonder if somebody did this charge port once already. That's annoying. Did I just put a Tristar in here for no reason? Maybe. Nope, it's still here on my bench. It's only taking 0.08 when booting. I'm trying to track down backlight circuit and check clock lines. You created an iPad with an integrated kickstand. Yeah. So what do you guys think? I suspect that maybe there is an issue with the charge port. Let's go ahead and unplug that, Mike, before you go poking around in here. It could be something else. Hopefully not something serious like power management. But I suspect that someone took this apart. Look at all this crap down here. I didn't do this. Okay, all this flux that's over here makes me think that somebody was jacking around with the charging port, and that always concerns me because I want to say, I mean, who is really qualified to refurbish Apple products? Is it just Apple? Are there other companies out there that are good at it? We know a couple that are not good at it because we've seen them process insurance claims and leave their phones looking ridiculous. So I don't know who I would trust, honestly, to refurbish an iPad. I'm not even confident that Apple would make me feel that good about purchasing a refurbished product, even from them, and they're the ones that make them. Let's see, what is going on here? It's weird. It's like some white crusty stuff in here. Anyways, I guess I'm gonna pull the board. Did not plan on this taking quite so long, and I hate these. If you want to see the board getting pulled, this is another annoying thing about these. You've got screws all the way around the charge port. Then you've got tape, then you've got cables, then you've got more tape, then you've got antenna wires, and it's just annoying. So I wasted a lot of time removing the battery for no good reason. And the main reason these charge ports fail so often is because they don't put thread lock into the screws. So these things get loose, wiggle around, and then the contacts break off on the inside, which is kind of silly. Unless you're trying to sell tablets, then it's probably a great idea, I guess. All right, we've got antenna wires over here that need to unplug. And then they're routed down along the side underneath a bunch of weird stuff here. Actually, as long as they're tucked out of the way, I think we still need to go for them over here. Let me put this under the scope so you can see this. This is a ridiculous part of this tablet. So you see the charge port here has an antenna wire going over the top of it. So you cannot remove, well, you can if you want to chance it, but basically it's not easy to remove the charge port from this little slot that it goes into without moving that antenna wire, which means you have to go all the way over here to where your Wi-Fi cables are and peel that stuff out of the way. It's just a goofy design. I never really, it always strikes me as a lot of this stuff is an afterthought. Like, hey, we built it. Oh, wait, we forgot to put something in. Well, let's just stick it here with a piece of tape on top of it and hope that everybody's happy with that. Now, this tape doesn't look like it's been removed before. That's the odd thing. There's flux under the charge port, but this looks like the tape is in perfect condition. So I don't know what's going on here, folks. But we're going to peel this off from here. This is the easiest way I know of to do it, unless you want to take a lot of unnecessary risk, which I don't like doing. So I'm going to keep this tape in one piece so we can reuse it. Set it right there, just stick it down. And then these guys have to flip up like so. And look at that, there's a broken something in there. Piece of plastic, probably from the home button that stopped. We're probably gonna have to replace the plastic home button also, because that looks like one of the pins fell off the bottom. You got to peel these up out of the way so that you can take off these tabs here and get to the screws that are underneath them. Isn't that neat? Don't you love it? And sometimes they fall right off, so if they do, just stick them somewhere that you won't lose them. In fact, I'd prefer they fell off for that reason. Come on. Just going to stay there? If you're going to stay, that's fine, but I know you're not. And then we need to peel back our antenna wire over here from beneath the adhesive. Again, this is the easiest way I know of to do it. So if you guys have a better method, by all means, let me know. I'm going to peel this back. Oh, and don't forget, we have some screws holding this down right here. This is the stuff that I need to hire someone to do for me because it's just time consuming. It's not that difficult, it's just silly. All right, so we got 2 screws here. You don't want to have to replace your Wi-Fi cable. Make sure you get those out first. And am I going to make it? I've got to go drop something off pretty soon, so I don't know if I'll be able to do this all in a part 1 or not. Okay, so we're going to peel this off like so. And then we have an antenna wire that goes underneath the speaker over here. So carefully, going to peel this back. Try to keep it all in one piece so that we can go out from on top of the charge port where we've got some more tape that goes over this dude here. So you could just pull the whole thing out if you want, just all the way across. Just try not to get your tape all tangled up. I'm just going to stick it out of the way here for the moment. And then we've got these 2 screws down in here that are silly. Come on. And they don't want to stick to my driver, of course. Just remember, those are the ones that go back into the inside. Well, you can't really put them in the wrong spot. They won't fit, I don't think. Haven't tried. All right, so we got those out. Now our cable is pretty much free. If you just go underneath and, you know, if you don't want to damage it, you can kind of peel under the adhesive this way. Don't go too far. Don't want to put any stress on the board. This thing is really stuck down, so I feel like this was something that Apple did, or someone who's got some really good replacement parts. Okay, come on. So that comes out like so, and then the fun begins. Okay, so now we do have a screw in the board right over here, and we've got more screws. Let's see, is that maybe Apple is transitioning from screws to lots of tape and adhesive. Sometimes I get that feeling. We've got our power button screw here that has a little metal thing that goes over the top of it. I don't know what it's called exactly. That's going to come off so we can disconnect the power button. Flex cable right there. And then we have up at the top our camera connector, which has another metal plate with the screw going through it. So that's going to get to come off. This is just a very labor intensive device. And then we have our little cable here. It's going to disconnect. And over here we have this fun stuff, which is basically a pop connector with some stuff taped on over it, which this has been disturbed before, so I can tell somebody definitely did some interesting work inside of this device. Now I'm just curious as to who that is. Okay, this also just stuck flat on here, which is kind of unusual. Okay, and then we've got another connector right under there. Oh, there's all kinds of crap in here. It kind of looks like it can't be water damage, right? All right, so from here, we are just dealing with adhesive, but you want to be very careful with these. These boards obviously are pretty brittle. Where'd my spudger go? Here we go. So the boards are pretty brittle, and you don't want to put any stress on them. There's not much adhesive down there, but there is a bit at the top. So as you go across here, just very carefully. And if you want to add some heat, certainly won't hurt. Boy, that is really sticky. Or you could go the playing card and rubbing alcohol route and just kind of work your way underneath here. Whatever you do, just don't put stress on that board because they are particularly brittle in my experience. Come on, why aren't you releasing? That's some really sticky stuff. Right up there at the top, they put a couple of, almost there, come on. I don't like this stuff, it's nerve-wracking. Okay, so right up here at the top, you got some really sticky stuff here and here. It's not focusing, is it? Come on. Did you work with me, camera? All right, I'm getting another camera soon. Anyways, there's adhesive here and here that's pretty heavy duty. Move that out of the way and take a look at this. And this looks like a legit charge port. This does not, well, actually, what are these numbers here? I'm really baffled. I'm not 100% sure what's going on with this thing. This all looks OEM. They've even got this little insert here that I think not many people move across when they do the ports. It's to accommodate the antenna wire. So I feel like this is pretty much OEM. But I am going to, do I want to plug in another port? I guess that's really the only way to do it. Stick that there for the moment. These all look connected. Even if they're a little crooked. I think everything inside the port was good. Let's double check. That wouldn't explain why it would charge when it's turned off, though. Anyways. Yeah, the inside of the port looks okay for the most part. It doesn't look brand new, but all the pins are present. And nothing looks broken. So that's interesting. So if we plug this in, we should be getting output right next to the Tristar. Let's see. Let's see. That is on there. Yeah, we should be getting, I want to say we should be getting our 5 volts in and a 3 or 3.3 output. I believe. Let's see what we got. So here. Okay, so I've got 2. That's weird. It's dropping. I got 3 volts. Okay, I do have my 3 volts. So that's so weird. 3.7. I need to pull up schematics. I don't remember all this off the top of my head, but this should be working. In any case, unfortunately, I'm going to have to come back to this one, folks, because I've got to go drop off some mail pretty quick, and I'm not sure what's wrong with this, so this could end up being who knows how long. Very strange, though. It's got to have something to do. I hope it's not the power management, because if so, then they're probably going to be out of luck unless they are happy about spending a lot of money on this thing. Now, let's take a look here. Does that look perfect? Does that look less than perfect? It does. We're missing a ball. This is neat. I've never seen this before. Whoever told me to measure these balls before I installed them, this chip is actually missing a ball on the top right-hand corner. I know you probably can't see that, but if you look there, there is nothing attached, and there's nothing under the chip itself to attach to. So I pulled a bad Tristar out of the box just now, and what does that line go to? So let's take a look really quick, because I'm curious now. Let's see where that line goes to. And I'm confident that is the problem now. I can't believe that. I got a bad Tristar. Okay, so let me show you this real quick. Okay, so if we take a look, what I'm looking at right now, and it may not be the only one, A6 is not there, and A6 goes to ground? Why isn't this thing showing me whether it's ground or not? This is ground, right? It's got to be ground. Yeah, so that's odd. So I wonder if there are any other balls missing from underneath there. You'd think that these multiple contact points going to ground would be enough, but maybe it's not. But that is really bizarre. I've never had a defective Tristar that I can think of. Let's see. But if you look down in here, there's no denying there is a ball missing right there on the right-hand side. There's nothing attached to it, and there's nothing underneath the chip to attach to. So I'm going to have to redo this. Ah, boy. Let's see, do we have enough time? Yeah, I might be able to do it real quick. Now that we got it all the way out of the device. That's a bummer. This really shouldn't take this long. This should not have taken nearly this long. Where is my other board holder that holds these? Give me a second. Here we go. I just did a lot of extra work because of a defective part. From now on, I'm going to start checking those things. That's disappointing. And this is from a good supplier, too. I guess you can... Nobody's perfect. All right, are you going to... This will hold an iPad. I don't know if it'll hold a mini, though. This board holder. Maybe. All right, so that's funny. Who was it, Harvey or Johnny? One of you guys said something about checking the height of the balls. Well, if I'd have checked, I'd have noticed there was a missing one on this, which is just, like I said, first time for everything. All right, so this is going to have to come back off. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this right now. I'm going to try. I would like to. I'm not going to reball it, though. That'll take too long. I don't know why the light is so badly affected by distance on this thing. And that's with my DSLR too, so it doesn't seem to matter what type of camera. It's just the scope, I guess. Alright, let's get a tiny bit of flux. This should come off pretty easy. It's not in the housing, and it's leaded solder. That is so strange. Never seen that before. I guess I haven't been around enough. Missing solder ball. That's neat. Alright, so this probably can be reballed and used again later, so we'll set that aside. If you have the patience for that kind of thing. I don't blame you if you don't. Alright, we're just going to do... Wow, this tip looks way bigger for some reason. This tip looks huge. Am I grabbing the wrong thing? Oh, that's it. Need a bubble. Alright, should be good there. And let's get another chip. Come on, dry up. I know we've got a tiny bit of old flux there. I'm not too worried about that. So got plenty of fresh stuff here. Alright, let's check this thing and make sure it is got all its balls on. Give me my good tweezers. I'm like a hoarder with my good tweezers. I only use them when I need them. Alright, so all the balls appear to be present. They look even to me. Alright, so get over here like so. I like my single-sided tweezers better because that way you don't get hung up on the opposite tweeze, whatever this. What's the singular of tweezers? Tweezer? I guess you could close a mic. That might work too. Sit. Sit. Oh my gosh. I need two pairs here. Alright, I'm trying to be lazy. I'm trying to do it fast. Alright. Let's get this bad boy on. And come to think of it, this probably is non-leaded solder. So I think these ones that are pre-balled take a little more heat. Okay, he sat down. He's not attached yet. Almost there. Alright, I think we're on. That should do the trick. This time, need some black ooze on the chip and the sides. Yeah, need to get my own underfill, right? Alright, we should be good now. I'm going to let this cool for a second. While I'm getting everything together here, we can take a look at it. God, that is really annoying. Go through all that and have a defective IC. Let's see how we're looking here. Alright, so that, if you can see it, sitting down nice and flat. Everything's attached, so we should be good to go with this. I know I keep hitting the microphone. I'm going to fix that problem in the next week or two also, with any luck. And we can just kind of clean this off a bit while it's warm. And you know, since we have the board and the battery out of the housing, easy way to test this thing now. We don't have to do the full assembly. I don't think this will error out. I don't think an iPad mini will error out if there's something not attached to it. I could be wrong. We'll find out here in a sec. Let's go back to this. And we need an LCD. Let's see, we need a battery and an LCD, and that's about it, right? And clean this alcohol off of my disk, just like that. All right, so this is going to be a little awkward, but it should work. This. If anyone here is an electrician, an electrical engineer, I'm curious as to whether I can add a switch, a manual switch to my, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug the lightning port in first on this end so that I can just disconnect the USB on the other, because that'll be a lot easier and not put stress on the port. I wonder if I can put an on-off switch on, say, like a power strip that's attached to my fume extractor and just power it on and off that way with the on button constantly turned on. Is there any reason that will do any damage to the device? I know that some have components built in. I know some electronics have things built into them where you don't want to turn them on and off with a power strip, but I would think that a fume extractor being a simple electric motor shouldn't be a problem, but I feel like if I'm forgetting something, I could cause an issue, and I don't want that. Okay, so I'm attaching the LCD and the battery, and once again, I keep forgetting, folks, for privacy reasons, I need to turn off, see, it's right in the middle of everything again. See, can we block that? All right, how are we going to do this? I'm going to turn off this camera. Actually, let's see. I'm going to turn off that for a second. There we go. I think we're good for the moment. So let me make sure there's nothing funny on here, or nothing that anyone wouldn't want to share with the rest of the world. I'm going to connect the USB port, and I am getting 1.4 amps. I've got an Apple on the screen, which you might be able to see just a little here in the corner. So hopefully nobody's photo is right there. We'll find out in a second. And I'm pulling 1.40, and it went back to 0. So it was charging, and now it's not charging again. And I've still got an Apple on the screen, which is probably going to shut off in a minute because this thing apparently only charges while the battery is completely off, which I can't say conclusively right now, and I'd want to do a little more testing, but I have a feeling this is going to be a power management issue because the Tristar does not seem to be fixing the problem, and it doesn't make sense that it would be the charge port, although I could try I'll probably put another charge port on here just to rule that out, but I suspect this might have some sort of power management issue unless I'm overlooking something here. It's not coming on, and when you plug it in, now I've got 0, which tells me that either the device is turned on and it won't charge, or something else goofy is going on here. But this thing appears to have more serious problem than just a simple Tristar. Maybe it's the port. Okay, again, I'm at 1.4 as it's booting up. It is charging while it's turning on. Did you already replace the charge port? I didn't, Nate. That'll be my next step. I'm just not gonna have time to do it right now. I thought I knew what was going on, and we had more than one problem. Yeah, it's going back to 0. So I guess I'll try the charge port But how would you explain that the device will actually charge when it's powered off if it's a defective charge port? That doesn't seem like... I guess it could. I just never seen that before. Yeah, all right, folks. So this will have to be a part 2 or a follow-up. I'll let you know what happens. I've got to run some errands real quick, but I'll be back on this afternoon. I don't know if I'll be live streaming it. Probably taking up enough of your time, but I will let you know the outcome. Hopefully we can figure this thing out and it's not something serious like a power management, which on an iPad Mini 2, I'm not sure how many people really want to pay for that repair, but you can always run it by them. In any case, I got to roll. I will catch you next time. You guys have a great week, and thanks for joining me. Talk to you later.